As we age, something strange happens. The things we once chased with desperation, status, possessions, even certain beliefs, begin to lose their grip on us. But here's the paradox. What should have been obvious in our youth only becomes clear after decades of struggle. And by then, the time to act has already slipped through our fingers. So let me ask you, are you living in a way that will make sense when you're 70? Or are you blindly following a path that leads to regret? Today, I want to share with you 9 things that stop making sense after 70, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll reconsider how you live your life right now. The pursuit of status is one of the most deceptive traps a person can fall into. For years, sometimes decades, people chase after titles, promotions, social recognition, and admiration from peers. They tell themselves that once they achieve a certain level of success, they will finally feel fulfilled. But what happens when they get there? More often than not, the goalpost moves. The hunger for validation doesn't disappear. It intensifies. They find themselves in an endless cycle of proving their worth to others, convincing themselves that their value is tied to their position in society. But then something changes. By the time a person reaches 70, the illusion starts to fade. The titles that once commanded respect begin to lose their power. Retirement strips away professional identity. The corporate world moves on, replacing them with younger, more ambitious individuals who now occupy the spotlight. The awards, the accolades, the achievements, all the things that once seemed monumental are now nothing more than distant memories gathering dust. At this point, a realization dawns. Status was never the true measure of a life well lived. What actually mattered were the relationships built along the way. The family that stood by during the difficult years, the friends who remained when success faded, the moments of genuine human connection that were often sacrificed in the name of ambition. Yet by the time many people recognize this, they look back and see that they spent most of their years prioritizing things that ultimately held no real meaning. The hours lost to unnecessary meetings, the stress of climbing the corporate ladder, the nights spent worrying about what others thought, none of it added to their happiness. The cruel irony is that status is never permanent. It is borrowed, not owned. It is granted by society and just as easily taken away. And yet people spend their best years obsessing over it, convinced that it defines their worth. At 70, it becomes painfully clear that status was never the answer. The real legacy is found in the lives impacted, the kindness shown, and the wisdom shared. The pursuit of status is a game that cannot be won, because the prize itself was never real to begin with. For much of life, people are consumed by the opinions of others. From an early age, they are conditioned to seek approval, first from parents and teachers, then from peers, colleagues, and society at large. The fear of judgment dictates their choices. They hesitate before speaking their mind, second-guess their decisions, and shape their lives around what is deemed acceptable or impressive. Social media amplifies this, creating an illusion that they are constantly being watched, measured, and evaluated. Every action is filtered through an invisible audience, and the pressure to maintain an image becomes overwhelming. But something shifts with age. By the time a person reaches 70, they begin to see the absurdity of it all. The opinions they once feared no longer hold power. The people they tried so hard to impress are either preoccupied with their own struggles or have faded from their lives entirely. The judgments that once felt so piercing are now irrelevant, and they realize a truth that had always been there. Most people were never truly thinking about them in the first place. They were too busy battling their own insecurities, trapped in their own concerns, just as everyone else was. Looking back, it becomes painfully clear how much energy was wasted on unnecessary worry. The hesitation to take risks, the avoidance of pursuing passions, the silence kept in moments that called for courage. All of it was dictated by the imagined scrutiny of others. But those opinions, even when they were real, never truly mattered. They didn't shape the person's character, didn't add depth to their experiences, and certainly didn't bring them fulfillment. What remains at 70 is the regret of having lived a life controlled by external expectations rather than internal conviction. The irony is that as people grow older, they admire those who lived authentically, who spoke their truth without fear, who pursued what they loved despite criticism. These are the individuals who inspire, not those who conform to fit in. If this realization comes too late, the only choice left is to accept what was lost. But for those who understand it earlier, the opportunity exists to live with freedom, to let go of the burden of others' opinions, and to finally be who they were always meant to be. Holding grudges feels justified in the moment. When someone betrays trust, speaks harshly, or acts unfairly, resentment builds like a shield, creating a sense of control over the pain. People convince themselves that holding on to anger protects them, that it keeps them from being hurt again. But what they fail to see is that the grudge doesn't imprison the other person. It imprisons them. Time that could have been spent in peace is wasted replaying old wounds. And energy that could have been used to build something meaningful is drained by bitterness. By the time a person reaches 70, the weight of those grudges becomes undeniable. Many of the people they resented have either moved on, changed, or no longer exist in their lives. The anger that once burned so fiercely has nowhere left to go, and the realization sets in. All those years spent carrying resentment amounted to nothing. The conflicts that seemed so important at the time now feel insignificant compared to the bigger picture of life. What becomes clear is that forgiveness is not about excusing bad behavior. It's about releasing oneself from the burden of carrying pain. The past cannot be rewritten, but the choice to move forward remains. Some people reach 70 and recognize this too late, left with the regret of strained relationships and missed opportunities for reconciliation. Others come to understand it sooner and choose to let go, allowing themselves to live with a lighter heart. In the end, resentment only ensures that the past continues to control the present. The sooner it is released, the sooner true freedom begins. People spend much of their lives accumulating material possessions, believing that success is measured by what they own. They chase bigger houses, luxury cars, expensive clothes, and the latest technology, convinced that these things will bring fulfillment. The excitement of acquiring something new creates a temporary sense of satisfaction, but it never lasts. Almost immediately, the desire shifts to something else, fueling an endless cycle of consumption. By the time a person reaches 70, the illusion begins to fade. The possessions they once valued so highly lose their meaning. The large house feels empty. The once prized items collect dust, and the realization sets in none of it ever truly mattered. What remains are the experiences, the moments shared with loved ones, and the impact left on others. The joy found in material things was fleeting, but the connections made along the way are what endure. At a certain point, people start giving things away, not because they no longer afford them, but because they finally understand that possessions were never the source of lasting happiness. The true measure of a well-lived life is not in what was owned, but in how deeply one lived and loved. People spend years chasing perfection, believing that everything must be just right before they take action. They hesitate, waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, or complete certainty. But by 70, they realize that perfection was an illusion that only led to missed opportunities. Life was never meant to be flawless, it was meant to be lived. The greatest memories, the deepest connections, and the most meaningful achievements all came from embracing imperfection. Looking back, the regret isn't over mistakes made, but over the chances never taken. The pursuit of perfection only delays living, and time does not wait. Avoiding difficult conversations feels easier in the moment. People stay silent to keep the peace, avoid conflict, or protect their pride. But by 70, they realize that unspoken words created more damage than honest discussions ever could. The apologies never made, the boundaries never set, and the truths never shared led to distance, misunderstanding, and regret. Avoiding discomfort didn't prevent pain, it prolonged it. The relationships that mattered most suffered not from confrontation, but from a lack of communication. In the end, the conversations avoided were often the ones that could have brought the most clarity, healing, and connection. People move through life assuming there will always be more time. More time to chase dreams, reconnect with loved ones, or start fresh. They postpone what truly matters, believing that the right moment will come later. But by 70, they realize time was never guaranteed. The chances they thought would always be there have disappeared, and the people they intended to spend time with are gone. Regret settles in, not over what they did, but what they didn't do. The truth becomes painfully clear. Life doesn't wait. What matters must be pursued now, because later is never promised. Health often takes a back seat to ambition, responsibilities, and daily distractions. People sacrifice sleep, ignore pain, and neglect their bodies, believing they can make up for it later. But by 70, the consequences are undeniable. The body, once taken for granted, now demands attention in ways that can no longer be ignored. Strength fades, energy declines, and simple tasks become challenges. No amount of success or wealth can buy back lost health. The realization comes too late for many. The body is not just a vessel, but the foundation of everything. Taking care of it is not optional, it's essential. People assume their loved ones will always be there, pushing off meaningful moments for another day. They get caught up in work, distractions, and personal ambitions, believing there will be plenty of time to reconnect. But by 70, many of those people are gone. The words left unsaid, the time not spent together, and the missed opportunities for connection become painful regrets. It becomes clear that success and possessions mean little without the people who mattered most. The greatest loss isn't just losing loved ones. It's realizing too late that they should have been the priority all along.